All right, so welcome back into our live stream. Today we are going to start with the Metaverse Top 20 as we roll out another version of the CPI. Each week we try to pull all this data together. Of course, all of the different sectors, including altcoins, gaming, Metaverse, etc., will be dropped on Monday. We're starting that actually this week, so a lot of new stuff coming out. We're going to dive into the Metaverse today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. The top 20 are always, I think, one of our more popular videos. It's one that a lot of people ask me about, especially in the gaming sector and also just in Metaverse in general. Just to give you guys a little bit of an understanding of how it works, is we build together essentially the crypto power index that we've been building for years, and it tracks sentiment and amplification on different projects. These are then scored across a variety of a 12-week window, and then each one of those ranks out each week, and then you have a ranking. And the ranking usually aligns somewhat with project price movement. And what we're continuing to see is more and more of those actually happening. Sometimes it'll catch a project before it moves, sometimes right in the middle of a move, and so on. So make sure and check it out, you guys. I'll leave some links below in the description of how you can get to the CPI and what we're showing you today. This is going to be one of those things that's ongoing. Before we get started, though, I want to thank our partner, and that is iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital is probably the go-to place when it comes to crypto IRAs, and it's one of the projects that, at least when I look at projects that are partners of our channel, very few do we accept as partnerships, and this is one of them that I really like. If you are thinking about when you look at IRAs and going into that, this is the place to go. One thing that they do that has really become very interesting to me is just the array of assets that they're offering. And a couple of things have changed here recently. Obviously, they've got the this new mobile and their new website, institutional grade crypto custody, with obviously with Coinbase and Fireblocks. And then here's the part that I really like, and this was just recently launched with them, so a lot more assets. The most interesting to me, of course, because of this show, is that they're seeing some potentials here with the Metaverse, and of course Decentraland, Mana right there. New to iTrust, that's the new ones: Mana, Avalanche, Polygon, Maker, Sushi, and Tezos. So this has really kind of expanded quite a bit from just being Ethereum, Ethereum, Polkadot, Bitcoin, and Cardano. So I think that the fact that you can now take your IRA and really get across a variety of different projects, this to me becomes a very interesting long-term play, because it really starts to play into what we think is going to be the future, and that is around the Metaverse. More and more projects really rolling into that. So guess what? You're also going to get $100 of Bitcoin, free Bitcoin, when you use our link below and sign up and get your project and your IRA launched. So make sure and check the link below, and you'll be able to get into that. Let's jump into a couple of the topics today. I want to jump over to our first story, and then of course is Sandbox. Metaverse token gains 40% after Snoop Warner Music partnership comes on cue, and I think this is something that we will continue to see in terms of brand partnerships and big time partnerships from an aspect of new movement in the space, whether it's music, entertainers, sports figures, all those kind of things that are happening. Obviously, we saw LeBron James get into the space this week as he started going on with crypto.com. And then I think also as we look at more and more strategies within the Metaverse, we'll continue to see a lot of evolution around some of these projects. So that's a good one that, of course, we follow constantly. Top 3 Metaverse crypto coins with a circulating supply below 13 million. This was another little tweak that I thought was kind of interesting. And this, of course, number 3 coming in at Alluvium, who's been on our list, I would say, almost nonstop in the top 20 for about the last 12 weeks running. And we run a historical data set on both sentiment and amplification. Amplification is a score that looks at how influencers and other key opinion leaders and people are talking about projects and really kind of helping that project, one, either be recognized, or maybe in some cases talking about whether or not they're going in and investing in it or participating in it or collaborating with it, those kind of things that really cause price action. So Illuvium right now, circulating supply at 642K, unit price right now 588, which has been a really good buy compared to what it has been. And remember, all-time high for Illuvium up around 1,800 bucks. So this one's got a lot of room. Obviously, the correction has really occurred with a lot of these projects. And this is one thing that I keep telling people when they're looking at Metaverse and play to earn gaming or play and earn gaming, is this is the period of time in which you really have to keep your eyes open. This is going to be an opportunity that really starts to, I think, reveal itself, especially if we see one more dip with Bitcoin. And I think if this occurs and we start to see some market correction, because we still may see a big market correction in the stock market, which will have an effect on cryptocurrencies and potentially give an opportunity to many people who may have missed the first run on the Metaverse, may give people an opportunity to get back into projects at extremely low rates. And eventually, Metaverse is going to decouple, and I think we'll start to see these projects kind of separate from the pack and really move on to the next level. And remember, you have to understand, there's a lot happening in this space around the future of where Web3 is going. And I think as we see Metaverse projects continue to go in this direction, big opportunity for sure. Some other aspects here is just a quick note on UFO. Number of UFOs holders increased almost 3 times within the past 3 months. It's stabilized. It's around 60,000 levels. And this was around the end of December last month. And I think as we see smaller projects like UFO Gaming continue to make a little bit of moves in the space, then you're going to have these opportunities with these kinds of projects that really kind of open up some potentials of where Metaverse is going. And I want to get over to the ranking real quick because we'll look at quickly about where the charts are, and then we can take a look at some of the actual data on the charts itself. So in the top 20, this is our weekly update. Sandbox, of course, comes in number 1, as we kind of talked about. The green bar that you're seeing there is the amplification, sentiment being the pink bar. And RMRK coming in right there at number 2. Not bad on most of this. The one that is impressive to me has been Alluvium, and that was because their amplification is actually overperforming what's happening on sentiment. So that usually indicates future potential. And that I'm always watching those a little tighter, especially when we start to see the charts like this. Number 5 coming in as Vulcan Forged PYR. A little bit soft on amplification. What that tells me is its likelihood going to slide out of the top 10 this week. But right now, Vulcan Forge has been up and down and, of course, had some price action. Mobox, of course, coming in number 6. Mana, Decentraland actually doing pretty decent in the top 10. Network, Eternity Chain, and then Engine rounding out the top 10. Engine also another one that's really underperforming from an amplification side of things in comparison to its current score on sentiment. So that's something to consider in some of these. And of course, as you look at these, and one of the guides that I try to explain on how to read sentiment is especially in the historical data. If you start to see things that are stabilizing versus projects that are starting to slide, that gives you indicators in many cases to kind of look forward to whether or not it's the perfect time to be investing in a project, providing that you believe in that project, whether you like it or you like what they're doing. Just as a reminder, these are market movers. Market movers are real simple. We'll give you a bunch of data. We might give you a ranking like what you see here today, but it is not investment advice. The idea is hopefully it's going to identify projects and or movement within current projects that you are watching or maybe you already invested in, and understanding whether or not you maybe should go do a little bit more research and find out if you should go in a little deeper, maybe something of that nature. Hopefully kind of get you in that next level. Let's go over to the next layer, 11 through 20. And this is Merit Circle, been in and out of the top 20. This, of course, ranking in at a number 11, so a strong position. My neighbor Alice coming in at number 12. And then Starlink right there at 7401, really tight. And then Render coming back in. We've had them in and out of the top 20 for quite some time. Star Atlas, again, overperforming. Both Render and Star Atlas overperforming on the amplification scores versus their sentiment scores. And then Axie coming in right there. And then we've got Wilder World, Yield, Guild Games, and Aurori. And I think the key here, when this chart kind of jumps out to me right now is I look at Red Fox and also look at Star Atlas. those are the ones that I'm really kind of interested in the essence of where potential growth might be, especially if you see what their communities are doing. And again, this starts to look at communities. It looks at the power of what price action is being driven by. And I'll show you a little bit about that when you look at things like Sandbox and some of those projects that we've been tracking. Let me jump back over here and we'll take a quick look at Sandbox. Just to give an example, so this is the Sandbox chart that we've tracked for quite some time. You can kind of see movement up the charts. Sentiment has been really strong right here in this era of time, which was back in mid-December prior to what we saw in terms of the fall off. But right here, sentiment had dropped down to 74.09, AMP was 73.27, and then here we are, sentiment starting to rise, and sure enough, we're getting a little bit of an uplift back on Sandbox. So that's a good example of how sentiment and amplification start to show up and identify project movement as we start to see these projects start to move in terms of price action. So that's a good one. RMRK, which is our number 2 project. This is another one that was kind of interesting. Let me kind of zoom in on that right there. Sentiment right here on January 24th, holding at 75.98. Amplification of 75.18. And again, amplification when it's that close to sentiment usually indicates that we're going to see either upward action or potential parabolic. In this particular case, nice upward action. Let's see what the upward action was once that we scored that one. Let's go over here to the ruler and catch that right here. So right here to, well, we'll go right there, which is right at 63% on the rise. So not bad if you were in here around January 24th and we saw a bit of movement on RMRK. Another one, of course, has been UFO. UFO, which was our number 3. We just pulled a data point right here on January 31st, this morning, and you can kind of see UFO charting up right now at a 75.84. And again, a 74.83 on amplification, very tight on that score. And if you go back out to the chart here and looking at, let me play that out just a minute. If you look at these kind of projects right here where you see Atlas and Red Fox overperforming on amplification, and then the same thing right there with Alluvium. So again, I'm looking for some movement in some of these projects. Sandbox, of course, has had some movement. RMRK is holding very tight. So is UFO. The ones that I would probably look a little soft on right now is Vulcan Forged, maybe Mobox, and then Engine, which are, when I look at how amplification is being done, I would look at those being a little bit weaker in terms of price action. But we'll see how those kind of go. We are going to take some questions. Make sure and hit the like button too, because this is a key thing. We want to be able to get this kind of content out to you guys on a more constant basis. And one of the things that we are releasing very soon is going to be our Crypto Power Index. And the Crypto Power Index, just so you guys know how we pull data, and I'll show you just a sneak peek on this on Metaverse and Gaming. And the reason I wanted to show this was how Metaverse and Gaming went to the overall sentiment currently, and this is overall across all categories, okay? Metaverse and Gaming had been holding, they had that dip right there on the week of 1-3 when we saw that massive cut into the market space where overall sentiment was at 71.98. But then Metaverse and Gaming started to recover. It's softened a little bit, but it's right around flat. Now we haven't reached this kind of high point that we saw back here in November, 12 weeks ago, which was really when we were at the all-time high around all projects and markets, even though 77.84 was really early December, was really kind of the end of where we saw that little bit of a run on the overall crypto market. So this is one of the things that we will be providing you. You guys are actually getting a sneak peek inside the dashboard right here. There's the altcoin rankings, how they're holding up to overall. There's the Ethereum, how it's holding up, almost identical. Ethereum is overperforming there. And then here's Bitcoin, again, almost literally. And again, that's because Ethereum and Bitcoin do have a lot of impact on the overalls. DeFi, same kind of scenario, even though we had a little bit of crossover. And then we will have a ton of new features that are going to be coming live here soon. We'll make this available to where you guys will be able to get to it very soon. So it'll have the top 20 altcoins, obviously our Metaverse top 20, our gaming top 20, DeFi, etc. We also have our trending projects which are something kind of unique. And I'll show you a little bit of a sneak peek of trending. Let me go over here to the trending button real quick. And you guys will get a chance, and you might as well take a screenshot of this one right here, because this is our trending track that we will look at. And these are usually trending tokens that really start to identify to me what kind of investments I'm looking at. I always score amplification here as opposed to just sentiment. And this is something that we are looking, of course, Kyber City coming in right there on the top. Whole bunch of other ones. You've got Decentral Games, Swiftcoin, Router Protocol. These, again, are going to be projects that you probably have not seen or even recognized. These are the ones that we start to watch, in, especially around 24-hour volume, what our trading signal is, which right now are buy and hold, and then market cap, which all plays into this. And we release these out each Monday, so it will be available as the CPI becomes available on the site. All right, so I do want to get to some questions today, because I know you guys are, probably have a ton to go into these. And I definitely want to go into these because there's more and more questions kind of going around this. But anyway, make sure and hit the likes below, like I said. And of course, we do have a poll. Let's jump to that real quick. Let's see what the poll is today. Give you guys kind of an insight. So boom, there you go. Which of these week's top 4 are you feeling good about? Sandbox takes the lead. Wow, UFO and Alluvium going neck and neck here. Woo, man, the crypto pit is on fire today. I see. We have an ongoing battle within the crypto pit between Illuvium and UFO, as to who loves what project. And interesting, you guys are right there with the crypto pit. I like it. Okay, let's jump to some questions, kind of get into it. Great show. How can you do a deep dive on render? We actually have a deep dive video on render right now, Hakon, and we've done this over time, especially if you follow our drops of videos when we do either major interviews or we do analysis. There's usually some rhyme and reason behind it. It usually means it's identified into our CPI, our power index, that something's happening, whether it's up or down, but in most cases it will be usually trending up. If you look back at the history of our videos, you'll start to see a pattern, especially if you map them against the gains. So just be aware, keep your eyes on those videos as we do. But we have a render, so just search render on our channel, you'll find it. All right, good one. Sucker on penny tokens. I'm investing in AMP, Anker, BAT. All right, basic. Which of these do you like? I like Anker just because of its tie-in to Luna and really what kind of the future is for Luna in general. Anker is also a good one if you guys are looking to leverage in terms of staking, other aspects like that. AMP is an interesting project. We've had the founder of Flexa on our show before. In fact, it's like one of our top videos. So there is a very interesting community around AMP that you should probably take a look at that project in general. Basic attention, I would say that's my number 3 out of those 2, but it's always an intriguing project. It's one we probably should do a deep dive on, but we've never done that. We got to get going on that. All right. Payton, man, let's talk about that. Payton has absolutely fallen off the charts. Here's what I think is going on with Payton, and that is when you see communities start to either disband or get interest in other projects or other games. I'm always worried about these gaming projects, which goes back to a scenario of should you invest in games or should you invest in studios, especially if you're looking at Metaverse and or play to earn or play and earn gaming. And I think more and more people are leaning into the studios. So that's things like a Gala, obviously the big guys, Sky Mavis. By the way, you should check out the Sky Mavis interview we had with that team over there. Amazing interview with Alexander. It was just, he gave a lot of insights to understanding how we are going to see growth in the metaverse. So check that one out there. But Payton, I think, had a issue with their community, and I'm not sure to what extent, if there was just a little bit of a fall off or if there was just losing interest. Not sure exactly, but something is going on there that is not driving the kind of sentiment data, which I think is causing Payton to see the kind of price action, negative price action that they've been seeing. So big one there. All right, so Illuvium, let's see, yeah. So Illuvium should be one of the movers. So this is what I'm looking at, again, based on where it's currently priced, based on what we're seeing on amplification, based on what we're seeing with the release, and I have an anticipation that there's a lot happening in the Illuvium camp. So we work very closely with them. They're not a partner of ours. They have been on our show many times, but it is one of those projects that we've continuously been very close to understanding from the devs and their team to really see where things go. And they have a lot of stuff brewing that I think is going to be very interesting in the coming. And it's like Sandbox and Axie to me, and this is my approach. I try to grab Illuvium, Sandbox, and Axie on any dip I can. Right now, right now with Axie, it's been dipped pretty well. If you were able to buy it in the 40s, man, you're going to be doing amazing. But I think that all three of those, as our crypto pit would call those, the holy trinity of those three projects, but definitely one that I like. All right, will you do an Alluvium update after their beta is complete? Absolutely, 100%. We actually, I don't know if I can say anything about this on the beta. I'm not going to say anything because we're trying to work a deal with them to get access to beta. So let's just say that right now. But we're going to be looking at some pretty cool stuff with Alluvium. Let's talk about Chili's. They will probably invest in more sports games, in all sports games. I think you're right, Tiger. We're going to see a little bit of movement from Chili's for sure. Definitely going to see, I think, kind of this shift into more and more sports-oriented aspects. And if you look at what, I don't know, Chili's and socials, I mean, there's a lot there for that kind of project to really kind of accelerate, especially as we get more and more, I think there was some news coming out on Polkadot with a soccer league. Which one was it? Barcelona? Okay. So that's the kind of connection we're seeing more and more of. And I think as we see sports-related aspects, any of the key components that can help leverage that, like a Chili's, might be a potential opportunity. We probably should jump back in and do another analysis on Chili's. We've done one before. Check out our last one because we got a video on that. All right, so let's go here. Dan, what are your thoughts on media mentioning we are in a crypto winter? I like that one. So here's one thing to be aware. As we potentially go to a bear market, if in fact that is the case, and or whether or not, remember, media always likes to hype. They need hype because that draws in clicks and views. You won't get that from us as much. We try to just come straight up with you on where the projects are going, how the market is trending, etc. The likelihood is that we could see another correction. I think a lot of that will be driven from the stock market. And at that point, I do believe we will be at what is that proverbial bottom. And that is an opportunity and has been a big opportunity for many cycles before this. So and I think for you guys, if you look at it from this standpoint, and me, I know a lot of people got caught holding bags on this last drop, but I also think that there's going to open up some potential opportunities here because this is where millionaires are made, billionaires are made in these down markets when we're seeing these kind of positions. So don't sleep on crypto. This is where it's going to get really, really interesting. B-Boy on Ajax, a Mana getting ready to pop. They're showing up in our top 20 and doing well. And I think Mana was, holding right at 75. A little soft on amplification for me at 73.08, but not bad, not bad. Like that one. Let's go here to Fantasma. They've actually made our list before on our low cap low cap gaming gems. So Fantasma has been, we've looked at before. Let's go back to Robert here. Blocktopia has many great partners. It's been a beta version, seriously coming out soon. Can it get back to its all-time high? Do you think it can survive the bear market? This is one of those that I'm on the fence a little bit about Blocktopia. Again, because of the fact that timing is very critical here to releasing projects and also releasing. But I do believe many of these metaverse projects, especially the ones that have good dev lineups, a good roadmap, and money behind them, how much money is in the bank for them for these winters, those are the ones that are going to accelerate and probably just absolutely put the hammer down during this market. In fact, I think we'll see some moves going upwards in terms of metaverse versus what we'll see in traditional, crypto, and maybe to a certain extent high value altcoins. So lots happening there. Sandbox, secure bet, first mover advantage. Yes, Illuvium is going to move on the next bull. 8 white lightning, I think you are definitely right there. Rajan, can you discuss Polygon and its and is their valuation reasonable? Polygon, Matic is one, and remember, there's a lot of news coming behind Matic, but remember that Matic has been and had some very good all times. but they have not necessarily been one of those projects that has completely popped. So if we do see any kind of altcoin correction, I think Matic will be one that will benefit from that. Guess who they just signed? They are signing YouTube team members now into their ecosystem. I think we'll continue to see big people coming onto the Polygon network in general. Remember also, they're trying and moving quickly into the gaming aspect. So don't necessarily think that Polygon is not done. There's a lot happening there. I think they are worth their valuation at this point right now. Actually, a little bit undervalued from where they could be. Harmony, will you do it? Yes, we're going to do one on Harmony analysis. Good point there. Thank you for bringing that up. E2O getting pushed away and is wondering if it will believe alt L1s will become more prevalent. All right, this is a big question because E2O getting pushed, and this is one thing that I've argued about with ETH for a while, and I think everybody would agree that there are just certain aspects of what ETH is trying to do on V2 that is going to make it difficult to complete. Now, they're trying to essentially recreate a blockchain. So that in itself, and I understand what it means like that, of restarting a project almost. Now, sure, there's a lot of framework there, and there's a lot of adoption there, but what they're trying to do is a pretty aggressive, model of going this direction. So I think this is something that I'm watching very closely. But at the same time, if you go in and listen to someone like a Raoul Pal, you get drawn right back into ETH because he is very pro ETH. And I like Raoul because he's a great macroeconomic mind. And I look at what he talks about when it comes to Ethereum, and the potential there is real. There's a lot happening. There just is so much potential there. And obviously being first mover, I just feel like you just have to play into this. So big one there. All right, let's talk about Hassan. Zilliqa, I think, is who you're talking about, and Gala. Gala is in and out. Gala has some new stuff coming on. We've got Bitbender coming on the show in February, so be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a big release. And also Zilliqa, listen, they need to hit their deadline, and unfortunately, they have one more day to launch their January Metaverse, which I think everybody was leaning into. So either they're up to something, like Corey says right here, or we got a delay. And I'm going to try to get Sandra back on the show and talk to her about it. But I think if Zilliqa can pull it off, their idea, their roadmap, and their concept and development capabilities is real and could be a nice correction for Zilliqa. Obviously, Zilliqa, if you guys know it, took a bit of a beating. Phantom isn't moving. Remember, we talked about Phantom early. Phantom in the early year was one of my long-term holds for the year, but my concern was going to be February. If it's come a little bit early, my concern is a little bit on Phantom seeing a lull period. Now, the question is, will it be all of February? Will we start to see Phantom move, or is it going to open up some opportunity for acquisition and dollar cost averaging? So if you're a big one there. All right, Nick, Ronan, scream to the rooftops, Ronan. Ronan, I think, will eventually make this top 20 list. It's a little bit young, and we haven't seen enough action, I think, out there in terms of the community yet, even though it's a big community when you look at Axie Infinity in general. So, for sure. All right, so best game studios apart from Gala. All right, so there's a bunch. When you look, okay, so let's just look at blockchain. You've got to go Sky Mavis, because eventually they're going to do other projects. Sandbox, I would consider, in general, Animoca Brands overall, not a studio, but a brand holder. Obviously, Gala, when you go there, Big Time, I think, is going to move into multiples. Those are all projects. And then you look at something like My Neighbor Alice, which is a traditional gaming studio that's converting over. Then you got Jam City, traditional studio converting over. They've got Champions Ascension coming out on blockchain. So there's a lot of that transitory kind of game studios, and there's the pure play on blockchain. So lots happening in that space. And there's so many others. There's a lot of other upstart studios that I think we should probably do a video on that. That's a good, thank you for bringing that up, my man. Thank you for bringing that up. Don of the Monte Crypto, what do you think of Omi? Hello, Omi. We just did a big deal on Vivi and what happened with Omi's migration. Big news coming for, if you have not watched that video with Kyle, We had Kyle on, who is, I think, one of the guys out there that really understands VV to a certain extent. I know he got a little bit of scratch in the comments, but I think the key here with VV, and if you went through VV's, I don't know if you guys are into collectibles. I've just started to really kind of get into it, and I like it. I mean, I've got young kids, so they really kind of get into that aspect, both comics or collectibles. This week was Mickey and Friends. Lots happening there. Had some fun with that one too. So I would say VV and Ecomi still a big bet for going forward. So lots happening in the space right now. Remember, make sure and subscribe to the Diamond Circle. We're going to be doing some more giveaways, and that means money in your hands, crypto in your hands. The way you get into it is you have to join the Diamond Circle. Just click the link below, and you're going to be in on it. If you're over on the podcast right now, jump over here to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, like a few videos, and then get in on the Diamond Circle, because you do have to be a subscriber on the YouTube channel to be eligible to win our drops. When we do our drops, last one we did was $1,000 of Bitcoin. We're going to do some more drops in February, and we've got some really cool stuff coming up with the launch of our CPI, the Crypto Power Index, that we'll have drops on that going all the time. Big news, lots of stuff coming for the channel this year, so make sure and stay tuned, of course, here. If you want to reach me, it's simply out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.